Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited. Isis, All That Glitters. The goddess next door takes on a bikini-clad bank robber in this action-packed all-new Isis series adventure. Get Isis, All That Glitters in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today. Just when I thought we reached the maximum level of cringe for 2019 with the CW's horrific Batwoman trailer, Elizabeth Banks manages to surpass those levels of cringe with her brand new Charlie's Angels trailer. Now, your Elizabeth Banks has decided that we need to reboot Charlie's Angels because we need to go out here and believe women. And because she believes that we need to believe women, she has decided to dust off the old classic 1970s franchise for a fresh reboot in 2019 so that we can get a maximum amount of girl power and get taught a message that we need to believe women in this dark era of Me Too. Now, this Charlie's Angels trailer is very horrific to look at and is so filled with cringe it's not even funny. And what makes it really troubling is that your Elizabeth Banks has decided to go out here and reboot Charlie's Angels, a franchise no one asked for a reboot of, and she has decided to completely walk away from the original foundations of the source material. Now, as a child who grew up in the 70s and late 70s and early 80s, I know what Charlie's Angels was all about. Now, when your Fred Silverman back in the 1970s launched Charlie's Angels, he launched it as part of something he called Jiggle TV, and Jiggle TV was all about presenting you these very sexy women and those sexy women having these fantastic adventures where all of the TNA was shown primarily. And with Charlie's Angels, it was all about the TNA, and the TNA was a major part of the action and adventures of the girls of the Charles Townsend Agency. Now, thanks to Kate Jackson, we managed to get a semblance of intelligence with your Charlie's Angels stories, and we managed to get the TNA brought to a level where it wasn't that exploitive. And when you look at the original run of Charlie's Angels, that even though there was the women's assets being shown as the primary focus, at least you got some sort of substantive stories in between the attractive women as you watched the show. So there was at least some substance, and the women were shown to be competent detectives with good detective skills in the original Charlie's Angels. But in your Elizabeth Banks' mind, she believes that with Charlie's Angels, we need to take this premise, which was basically a T&A premise, and turn it into a feminist narrative and use Charlie's Angels as something to promote the whole concept of strong women who need to be believed above everything else. And that is something, as I see it, as diametrically opposed to what the original premise of Charlie's Angels was from Aaron Spelling and from what Fred Silverman proposed as part of his Jiggle TV lineup, which also included Wonder Woman as well back in the 1970s. So we have Elizabeth Banks, who clearly does not understand the source material she is working with, and instead of her going out here and creating her own original concept, she has decided to take the 1970s premise of Charlie's Angels and then try to transpose and project her own ideas on it, and then infusing it with the whole concept of feminism and identity politics. Because when I look at what she's doing to Charlie's Angels, it is no different than what many of these social justice warriors were doing to Marvel Comics these days, where they decide to take a popular character, remove him from his story, and then try to put their character on that story and project their own ideas onto that character, promoting their own social justice and identity politics narrative. And what your Elizabeth Banks is trying to do with Charlie's Angels is take it away from the original concept of three little girls being recruited by the Charles Townsend to work for him because the police department did not see the very best in their talents and abilities, and deciding to make it into this ultra-feminist narrative that really does not fit the original concept of Charlie's Angels. And this new concept that she's making is supposed to be global, and when you look at this trailer, it is all filled with a whole host of cringe from the first few seconds, where we have one of these angels sitting there with this Asian man, and she goes out of her way to emasculate him in the first 4 or 5 seconds of the trailer, talking about how he was stealing from a nonprofit. Well, as somebody who worked in a nonprofit, I can tell you that this is something that you don't beat somebody else up over, because it goes on all the time. So this whole scenario that she's writing comes from a place of not understanding the business of nonprofit and not understanding that these things happen, and that when they happen, we have law enforcement to do these things. But when it comes down to this trailer, the whole trailer, what really makes it filled with cringe is the arrogance of the whole tone of the story. And the whole tone of the trailer is that women can do things, and that not only can women do things better than men. And the trailer presents a whole idea that women are superior to men. So when I look at this trailer, it's just so filled with all of this third wave feminism, and this feminism is about female superiority, and it condescends to the viewer as it presents some of the blandest and most generic visuals and the most generic of stunts. So in its attempts to try to present the whole idea of female superiority, we get to see Hollywood mediocrity on display in a very bland and generic story about this girl going to the Townsend agency to get help from Charlie's Angels, who are supposed to try to stop this international conspiracy. And as we're watching this so-called conspiracy, we get all of these visuals of these strong women, and what we get are these external visuals which show women trying to be masculine, but not trying to show us the things that made the original Charlie's Angels so cool, their softness and their strength of character and resolve in the most dangerous of situations. Because when Aaron Spelling created the original Charlie's Angels, when he created the stories, he wanted to show the internal character as the strength of women, and he wanted to focus on those internal character traits as he developed those characters. When you looked at characters like Sabrina Duncan, Chris Monroe, and I can't remember Jacqueline Smith's character's name, and even the Tanya Roberts character and the Shelley Hack character, they were all unique and distinct, and they all brought different aspects of what made women strong to the table. So even though there was a major focus on the TNA, on the attractive women in the sexy clothes and the bikinis, there was still some semblance of substance in the original Charlie's Angels. But in this new one, we get this downplay of sexuality, which was a major part of the original, and we get these masculine acting women talking about these feminist points, and these feminist points that your Elizabeth Banks are proposing are quite troubling when you take a critical examination of them. Because your Elizabeth Banks says that your Charlie's Angels 2019 is all on the theme of believing women. Well, as a black man, I really start to cringe when I hear white women make up the whole argument of believe women. Because it was the argument of believe women that led to the lynchings of black men during the days of the post-Reconstruction America, a period where lynching hit an all-time high during the 1880s. And as we transitioned from the period of post-Reconstruction to Jim Crow, we had white women who were believed by a group of beta white males who went on rampages where they lynched black men, where they went out here and burned black homes, where they burned black towns like Rosewood and Black Wall Street, all based on the allegation of a white woman being sexually violated by a black man. And we saw thousands of black men being lynched every year during Jim Crow, all the way to the 1970s. And if it wasn't for Carolyn Bryant at the time making an allegation that Emmett Till whistled at her, which was not true, Emmett Till would be alive today. Because if it was Carolyn Bryant who only wanted to crap test her husband and her brother-in-law by telling them to go out here and kill Emmett Till, is the reason why those men went out of their way to torture and murder Emmett Till. So when I hear one of these white women talking about believe women, as a black man, it terrifies me, because when you say believe women without facts, without evidence, and without any sort of due process of law, that's a very dangerous situation for a black man to be involved in. Because when it comes down to black men in this country, we have had to suffer because many of these women went out here and told lies on black men, told lies that black men did things to them. And because these white women told these lies, this is why many innocent black men wound up losing their lives due to lynchings, and many more suffered as they were railroaded through not only the Jim Crow criminal justice system, where they received life sentences for crimes they did not commit. We have men today, like your Bill Cosby right now, being railroaded through the criminal justice system for a crime he did not commit, as related to sexual assault. And we have Chanel Lewis, the young mentally disabled man who is now doing a life sentence due to Karina Vetrano's murder. And it's all due to the whole concept of believe women. So when a white woman like your Elizabeth Banks comes out here and talks about making a film saying that we need to believe women, this is something that terrifies me, because I know what this kind of propaganda is used for as related to black men. When you have woke white folks coming out here with films like Charlie's Angels, this is not entertainment like the original 1970s Charlie's Angels. This is propaganda designed to indoctrinate people into a frame of thinking regarding women, and that frame of thinking is dangerous, especially to black men, because in this era of Me Too, this type of so-called woke film is the type of propaganda that racists use to demonize black men, and they make it look like it's something fun and fancy like this Charlie's Angels, and they try to romanticize things, but in actuality, it's all about trying to promote the idea that your strong women have to go out here and destroy men in order to be strong, and they have to appear to be this superior woman, better than a man, and that the black man has to be at the bottom of the world. So when I look at this whole woke Charlie's Angels, I see not only how much of a cringe fest it is as related to how terrible a film it is, but I also see a lot of the racist angles as related to this film. Now, this Charlie's Angels, as I see it, again, this is not a reboot anybody asked for, but it is all part of the new woke Hollywood, which wants to go out here and it wants to be a platform to preach to people, and it wants to be able to preach narratives to people. But when you look at the narratives that they are preaching to people, it is nothing more than much of the same racist narratives that your white supremacists promoted back in the days of Jim Crow. They want to present you this so-called strong woman who wants to talk about how we need to believe women. But it seems like to me, your Elizabeth Banks doesn't understand why we have things in place like due process under the law, because we cannot go out here and just believe women. And it takes a strong woman of character to go out here and say, not only do I want people to believe me, but I want to present facts to substantiate people so that when I present an argument to people, they will believe what I say. And as I see it, if you're going to sit there and talk about believe women, it shouldn't be that we just come out here and believe you outright just based on what you say, because that is deifying a woman, and that's what these feminists want you to do, is deify a woman, put her in a place of a god, and say that everything she says is the gospel truth. And that's something that I would find to be completely outside the order of the living God, because only God is the one who cannot lie, because God is not a man, whereas your woman was the one who plunged everyone into sin. So we cannot believe woman, because woman was the one who plunged everyone into sin. And when I look at this Charlie's Angels trailer, it is a sin that this film got made, and it's sad that this trailer got greenlit when there's so much great material out there that Hollywood didn't need to really compromise the original Charlie's Angels concept, all to promote a feminist and identity politics narrative. And this is film, I thought Batwoman was the worst we could get in terms of woke, but when I look at this film, I see a clear picture of why Hollywood is going to go broke in a way worse than it did back in the days of the late 1960s and early 1970s, when big studios like MGM were out here making epic movies as the Vietnam War was going on, and making musicals when we had many of our soldiers coming back from Vietnam shell-shocked and traumatized, and seeing that people were smiling in a world where they were suffering. And that's what I see going on with 2019 Hollywood as it makes this Charlie's Angels trailer. Disconnected people like Elizabeth Banks who live in their own world, not connected to our world, and trying to present us a picture of reality, of a fantasy that does not reflect the reality of the world going on around us. As a writer of strong heroines, I was deeply disturbed by what I saw in that Charlie's Angels trailer, because all I saw was a lot of flash promoting these feminist ideas of so-called strong women on the external and trying to masculinize women and emasculate men. And I saw none of the internals of many of the strong women I have experienced in my life in terms of having the strength of integrity, the strength of character, and seeing what's great about a woman, seeing her softness and her femininity presented in a positive light, and seeing her supporting men, because at least in the original Charlie's Angels, the original angels were helpmeets to Charles Townsend and helping him do the work of the Charles Townsend Agency, showing the strength of women from what they had on the inside and showing us what was great about being a woman. But when I look at Charlie's Angels 2019, all I see is a film that has a bad case of penis envy and shows us that social justice has nothing to do with anything as related to any of the concepts of justice. And instead of giving us a film that entertains, all they give you is a film that rots your brain. If you'd like to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon by clicking the link in the description box. And if you want to donate to my PayPal or my Cash App, you can also donate through those applications by clicking those links in the description box. And if you want to read some books featuring strong heroines and positive heroines, like you can pick up my ISIS series, my E-Steam series, the books of the Spinsterella trilogy, and the Thetas on Amazon.com. By clicking the link in the description box, there you can pick up all those books featuring great heroines in paperback and Kindle formats and see what a balanced picture of a heroine looks like as related to strength of character. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Coming to Kindle Unlimited this April, E-Steam Goddess of. Hell's aspiring angel takes on a demonic dominatrix in this all-new E-Steam series adventure. Pre-order your copy of E-Steam Goddess of on Kindle Unlimited or pick up the paperback today.